Three people are shot, one killed in North Baltimore. This happened last night at the Alameda Marketplace. You can see the bullet holes in the door of the Subway restaurant there. Police say a man was shot in the torso. He was taken to the hospital.
That was the first version. 3 people shot outside a shopping center. 1 person killed. Bullet holes in the Subway door. It could not show the evidence chain or the 16-year-old tied to it. His name was Travis Chance Jr. Investigators found 24 cartridge casings, 18 from a .223 rifle, 6 from a .40 handgun. At least 2 guns had fired, but the trail began earlier. Surveillance from the shooting showed a man leaving a white sedan. He wore bright blue shoes. 24 days earlier, a Best Wings camera recorded matching shoes and a gold spray painted rifle. Prosecutors argued the evidence connected the crimes. Then investigators found a phone video made 34 minutes before the murder. The Attorney General says it showed everyone inside the suspect vehicle. Their clothes matched the crime scene surveillance. The public did not see that chain in 2019. 2 juries would see it in 2026. This is the Alameda file, what the cameras caught, what the evidence connected, and what the record still cannot explain. At about 6:50 on the evening of July 11th, 2019, the Alameda Marketplace was still active. People were entering stores. Cars were moving through the lot. A mother stood in line with her daughter. Another woman was nearby. Travis Chance Jr. was walking past the Subway in the 5600 block of the Alameda. Nothing about the setting separated him from the ordinary movement around him. This was not an isolated road or an empty lot after midnight. It was a commercial strip in daylight with storefront windows, a gas station nearby, and people close enough to become unintended victims. That geography is part of why the first footage feels so abrupt. The visible crime scene is surrounded by places that were still operating as normal moments earlier. According to the case later presented by the state, a sedan pulled into a nearby Exxon station. 2 shooters got out. In seconds, 24 rounds were fired. Travis was struck 3 times. 1 woman was hit in the leg. Another was hit near her ear. Both women survived. Travis was taken to Johns Hopkins, where he was pronounced dead approximately 2 hours later. He was 16 years old. That age matters. Early coverage could only report 1 person dead. The later court record describes calibers, clothing, vehicles, DNA, phone data, and surveillance. But every piece of that evidence exists because a teenager did not make it home. The damage visible in the news footage showed the speed and reach of the gunfire. The casings gave investigators something more precise. 18 were .223 caliber, 6 were .40 caliber. That division supported at least 2 firearms, an assault-style rifle and a handgun. It did not by itself identify who held either weapon. A casing can help establish how many shots were fired and whether different firearms were involved. It cannot name a shooter. The scene gave investigators a count, 2 caliber groups, and areas to compare against the cameras. Identity had to come from evidence outside the cartridge cases. To move from the pavement to individual people, investigators needed the cameras. On June 17, 2019, 24 days before the Alameda shooting, a husband and wife were robbed at Baltimore's Best Wings. The restaurant surveillance recorded a dark-clothed man wearing bright blue shoes. He carried a rifle that appeared to have been spray-painted gold. The state later identified that man as Diamante. A jury would eventually convict Teal for the Best Wings robbery, as well as the Alameda murder. But the footage must be understood in the order investigators encountered it. First as an image, then as a possible connection, and only later as part of a prosecution. The July 11 camera showed another dark-clothed figure stepping from a white sedan. Again, the shoes were bright blue. Again, prosecutors focused on the gold-colored rifle. The comparison did not begin with a name written on the footage. It began with recurring visual details. The 2 recordings were made at different businesses on different dates. One showed an armed robbery inside a carryout. The other showed the approach to a fatal shooting outside a shopping center. prosecutors asked jurors to see those details as part of one continuous evidence trail. Shoes are not fingerprints. A color match is not enough to prove a murder. The importance came from accumulation. The footwear, the rifle's unusual appearance, the timing, the vehicle, and other evidence the juries would hear. The state also presented photographs showing Teal holding the spray-painted rifle on earlier occasions. Prosecutors argued that the rifle seen at Best Wings was the same rifle used at the Alameda. The public record available to this documentary does not establish that the rifle was recovered. That distinction matters. A jury can evaluate linked photographs and surveillance without the weapon itself being physically introduced as a recovered exhibit. Surveillance also gave investigators a suspect vehicle. The Attorney General's account says the sedan contained Phillip Morton's DNA. Morton was accused of driving the vehicle, waiting nearby as the shots were fired, and leaving with the two shooters immediately afterward. The vehicle was not the only place investigators found Morton's connection. They obtained his cell phone. On it was a video recorded 34 minutes before the homicide. According to the Attorney General, that video showed everyone inside the suspect vehicle. The clothing visible in the phone video matched clothing seen in surveillance from the crime scene. 34 minutes is close enough to create a narrow comparison window. Investigators could place the phone recording before the shooting, then move forward to the exterior surveillance and the vehicle's departure. The official summary does not make the recording public, but it describes why the timing mattered. It reduced the distance between who was inside the car and what the outside cameras captured later. The actual phone video is not public material in this production. We will not manufacture its faces, dialogue, or contents. What matters is the official description of what it gave investigators. A view inside the vehicle, close in time to the shooting, with clothing that could be compared against the exterior cameras. That is a different kind of evidence chain. One camera watches from a building, another recording comes from inside the group. The value is not any single frame. It is the ability to compare time, people, clothing, and movement across separate sources. By the time the cases reached juries, prosecutors were no longer presenting one blurry camera image. They presented the white sedan, the blue shoes, the gold-colored rifle, the Best Wings robbery, the two calibers at Alameda, Morton's DNA in the vehicle, the phone video from 34 minutes before the homicide, and social media and phone evidence involving Teal. None of those categories should be collapsed into a single dramatic image. DNA in a vehicle answers a different question than a surveillance frame. A message offers different context than a cartridge casing. A photograph of a rifle is not the same thing as recovering that rifle. The prosecution's argument depended on the pieces reinforcing one another while still doing separate jobs. The Attorney General says jurors saw material in which Teal appeared to be searching for the victim and told an associate, "I'm on his ass." The state also said Teal left for Ohio shortly after the murder. When his sister asked why he had gone, prosecutors said he sent her a screenshot of a news article about the triple shooting. Those statements were part of the prosecution's case. They should not be stretched beyond what the official account says. The available public record still does not provide a complete explanation of the conflict, its origin, or why Travis became the target. For Morton, prosecutors presented a separate piece of evidence, a letter intercepted during the investigation. The Attorney General says Morton admitted in that letter to committing a homicide because of an ongoing conflict involving individuals at the Alameda. Again, the public summary does not answer every question, but it shows why the case was larger than a single surveillance clip. Nearly 7 years passed between the shooting and the verdicts described here. The verdicts came from separate trials, before different judges and against different defendants. That matters because the evidence against Morton as the alleged driver was not identical to the evidence used against Teal as one of the shooters. The later public announcement places the outcomes beside each other. but each jury had to evaluate the case presented in its own courtroom. On March 23, 2026, a Baltimore City jury convicted 28-year-old Phillip Morton of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and related charges. The trial lasted 6 days. Jurors deliberated for approximately 5 hours. Morton's sentencing was set for August 11, 2026. As of this production, that date has not yet arrived. Then came the case against Diamante. After another 6-day trial, a jury returned its verdict on May 11, 2026. Teal, then 29, was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, use of a firearm in a crime of violence, and 2 counts of first-degree assault in the Alameda case. The same jury also convicted him of charges connected to the Best Wings robbery. Teal's sentencing was set for August 13, 2026. That date also remains ahead of this production. A third man, William Stewart, was identified by prosecutors as the alleged second shooter. The Attorney General's May announcement said Stewart was scheduled for trial in October 2026. That means his guilt cannot be stated as fact here. A charge is not a conviction, and a scheduled trial is not an outcome. The Alameda case is no longer in the same place it was in the WJZ report. The first images show police tape, damaged glass, and a shopping center trying to understand what had just happened. Years later, prosecutors assembled a case across different times and locations. A restaurant robbery in June, a triple shooting in July, a vehicle, a phone, DNA, surveillance, photographs, messages, and a letter. 2 juries accepted enough of that evidence to convict Morton and Teal. But a verdict does not make every unknown disappear. The public record available here does not fully explain the origin of the conflict. It does not establish in the material review for this documentary that the gold-colored rifle was recovered. Stewart's case had not reached a verdict when this production was prepared, and the sentences for Morton and Teal were still pending. Those pending dates also make this a record still in motion. Morton's sentencing was scheduled for August 11th. Teal's was scheduled 2 days later. Stewart's trial was scheduled for October 13th. Until those proceedings occur and the official record is updated, this documentary stops where the verified record stops. Those are not gaps to fill with rumor. They are limits to state clearly. The most important fact is not unresolved. Travis Chance Jr. was 16. On July 11, 2019, he walked past a shopping center in broad daylight and was killed in a burst of gunfire that also wounded 2 women. For years, the public story was a short news report and a cold case file. The later court record revealed how much the cameras had captured and how many separate pieces investigators believed were connected. This was the Alameda file. The evidence can explain movement, timing, clothing, weapons, and vehicles. It can support verdicts. It cannot return the years Travis never got to live.